The long dark hallway that Edward had been walking through for what felt like forever suddenly came to an end, and a door opened in front of him. A bright flash of light made him shut his eyes. There was a roaring sound in his ears, and suddenly a gentle hum was followed by a loud voice. "Start life over, but don't waste time." The man felt a strong force pushing him, and he seemed to return to his body once again. The place where he had been for who knows how long started to feel familiar to him, and it was a bit strange to feel his old sensations again. He tried to open his eyes but found it difficult at first. Slowly his hearing began to catch separate sounds, among which Edward recognized a painfully familiar female voice. It was his beloved wife. More than anything he wanted to see her, to hold her, to make her happy that he had come back, that he was alive, that he was here. He barely opened his eyes and saw that there was no one in the hospital room. Around the bed were pieces of medical equipment, with wires and tubes connected to his body. The door to the hallway was slightly open. That's where his wife's voice was coming from. She was speaking softly, but the man clearly heard her words. Apparently Tatiana was somewhere close. Edward listened and couldn't understand at first what or whom she was talking about. "And when can I re-register the property?" A reply came. "He won't survive this." These words confused the man even more, and a ringing sound returned to his head. The woman continued, "And if not through inheritance, can it be handled another way?" But quickly, Edward slowly began to realize that she was talking about him, and most likely she had decided to take over his property. He tried to swallow the lump in his throat, but it was dry. He wanted a sip of water, but he couldn't lift himself up or ask anyone. Tatiana asked with a smile in her voice, "When will you come to me?" Then she added, "I miss you. I can't wait until I no longer have to be afraid of his return." Now Edward was sure that he would not reveal his incredible return to them. Footsteps echoed down the hallway, and Tatiana's voice. She stopped them. With a tear in her eyes she asked, "Doctor, tell me, how much longer will he have to suffer?" The woman replied with a slight hint of disapproval in her tone. From her voice she seemed young. "Have hope and please don't stand here. You will be informed of any changes," Tatiana said. "Just please call me." And she walked toward the exit. The doctor entered the room and started pressing some buttons on the machine beside Edward. The woman quietly muttered through her teeth, "She's already ready to bury him alive. But he'll survive it all, despite everything." Edward tried to speak, but his tongue felt stuck to the roof of his mouth. He could only make a strange noise instead of real words. As he opened his eyes, the woman turned toward him, and a smile appeared on her face. She said, "That's what you needed to prove." Then she left and returned. With her colleagues, they examined Edward carefully, took his blood, connected machines, and discussed something quietly. After some time, everyone left, except for a young nurse, who gently applied a piece of wet cotton to his lips. He slightly parted his mouth and eagerly pressed the cotton with his thumb, so the moisture could reach his tongue. The girl quietly said, "You can't drink yet, unfortunately, so please be patient. You did well." With great effort, he managed to say, "Call the doctor, urgently." The nurse ran out and came back quickly with the doctor. Each word caused him pain and discomfort. "You must not tell my wife. She shouldn't know. Please, I'll pay you," he said. The doctor replied, "Okay, don't worry. It's better if you stay silent for now. We won't tell her. You're safe with us." The women left the room, and Edward heard the doctor quietly whisper to the nurse, "I wouldn't even let a wife like her step on the hospital porch. She's just waiting to hear that she's a widow. How can the earth bear such people? I would pray for days that he survives." After a while, the nurse put him on a drip and explained that she would keep feeding him through the vein. Now, his wife's words kept coming back to his mind. How could she be having an affair with someone behind his back? After everything Edward had lived through, for the sake of his family he had done everything possible. He made sure his wife felt comfortable. He never limited her financially. He let her live as she pleased. And now, after his accident, she didn't seem sad at all. Instead, she seemed pleased, eager to figure out how to claim his property. These thoughts disgusted him. He wanted to tell her how wrong she was, that he would survive everything, even death itself. And now, she would not get a single penny in the divorce. A few days passed, and the man began to feel better. The doctor came in. "Well, how are you?" She worked every other day, and often sat talking with him for a long time. Edward replied, "Thank you. I'm doing well. Thanks to your prayers." Vera, that was the doctor's name, looked shy and lowered her head. "Well, that's good. Listen, I can't hide it from your wife much longer that you've regained consciousness. Tomorrow you'll be moved to the regular hospital ward, and then I'll have to face her," Edward said. "Even though I'm not ready for a confrontation. I heard everything when I opened my eyes." Edward fell silent, a lump forming in his throat. "I know. I heard it too," she replied. "I don't understand how someone can treat a loved one like that. That's what I don't understand either." Edward agreed. "But it doesn't matter anymore. I'll divorce her as soon as I recover." No one from the hospital called Tatiana. She was already growing impatient, eager to hear. She had become a widow. She returned again to the intensive care unit. Tatiana said. I need to know. How much longer? He'll have to suffer. She tried to appear as a caring wife. An elderly nurse replied. Long enough. And he's no longer here today. Tatiana was secretly overjoyed, suppressing her smile and pretending to be a grieving woman. He turned around and quickly left the hospital. The nurse added, He's gone from our department today. But Tatiana didn't hear her words. Edward stood by the window and looked at his wife. She was on the phone, smiling widely. His heart boiled with anger. Edward went to the doctor, deciding it was time to face his wife. He said, I need to go home. The woman now managing his treatment at the hospital looked surprised. Are you serious? You were just moved from the intensive care unit. The next morning, you were just transferred from the intensive care unit. And now you're trying to run off somewhere. He said. You don't understand. This is urgent. I won't stay here until I finish what I need to do. I promise I'll return as soon as I handle it. Come on, I'll sign wherever needed. Otherwise, I'll leave or escape. If you don't let me go. Edward signed the required forms, called a taxi, and followed his wife. When he entered the house, he saw a strange man standing in his underwear in the living room. The man said excitedly, We'll tear out this fireplace and put in a cool sound system instead. Edward stepped into the room. I hope I'm not interrupting. Tatiana immediately turned pale, frozen in shock, as if she had seen a ghost. Maybe that's exactly what she was thinking. Edward, how are you? She stammered. He gritted his teeth. Be quiet. You have 5 minutes to pack your things and leave. My security team will be here soon, and they'll throw you out if you're still here. Tatiana began crying and fainted, not wanting to lose the wealth their marriage had promised. Edward, I thought you were gone. I didn't know how to deal with the grief. Edward smirked. And you immediately found a replacement for me. Didn't you, Tanya? Get out. And if you dare try to take anything in the divorce, you'll still owe me. Suddenly, Vera's words echoed in his mind. I would pray for days that he survives. And Edward silently thanked her. Not every doctor believes their patient will recover and fights for their life. If it weren't for her, Tatiana might have even paid someone to help him die sooner. The thought sickened him. After all, he had once dreamed of spending his life with Tatiana, of seeing her carry their child one day. But that dream was now gone. Tatiana shouted insults as the guards escorted her and her lover out the front gate. But Edward was unmoved. All feelings of love had vanished the moment he discovered how dishonest and heartless the woman he once cherished had become. Edward brought in professionals, change all the locks within a couple of hours, and instructed the guards to watch the house while he returned to the hospital. to continue his recovery. While he stayed there for a few more weeks, Dr. Vera visited him several times, always checking on his health. They talked about everything and nothing, and these little conversations helped Edward clear his mind from dark thoughts. After being discharged, Edward began the divorce process. As expected, Tatiana demanded her share of the property they had gained during marriage, but she didn't realize most of the assets were tied to a large business loan Edward had taken, and they would have to split that debt as well. That's when Tatiana chose to sign a document waiving her claim to the property. During the divorce, she cursed Edward and said terrible things no rational person would ever say. But Edward ignored her. In his eyes, she had become nothing but an empty space. Later, Edward realized he missed Vera. He hadn't even properly thanked her for saving his life. He bought a bouquet of flowers and headed to the hospital, hoping she'd be on shift. But the nurse told him, "Dr. Vera Borisovna is currently in a complicated operation." Edward sat quietly in a corner and decided to wait. After a couple of hours, a tired-looking woman, with tears in her eyes, came out and sat beside him. Edward gently asked, "What happened?" Vera took a deep breath. "It was a tough case, but we saved the patient." Edward's heart felt suddenly lighter. She looked at the flowers. "Are these for me?" Edward smiled shyly and handed them to her. "Yes, sorry. I've forgotten how to talk to women. I wanted to ask you out on a date. But if you're not interested, I won't be offended." "I'd love to," she replied warmly. "My shift ends in half an hour. Walk sounds like the perfect recovery after a tough surgery, and you could use some fresh air too."